Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 12th of September. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barrie. How are we getting on, Joshua?
I'm not at full fitness today, Derek, but good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah, fighting feeling under the weather over the weekend.
Fighting something, but
yeah,
already looking forward to Wednesday. Obviously, a lot to talk about over the weekend. A lot happened, even though there was no football. So yeah, lots to get stuck into.
Yeah, there certainly was, and we'll talk about that in a minute, folks. Just a reminder, though, as you can see the little ticker below, we've still got that offer on the website. Loads of you taking advantage of it, so thanks very much for doing so. Just £1 for 2 months' worth of content at the Rangers Review site. I'll stick the link in the comments section as usual. So head over to that and take advantage of the great work that you can find on there. Okay, Teddy Bear gets in touch. He says, looking off, Joshua.
I don't disagree. With him.
Yeah, they're battling on, however. And let's talk Rangers, because the news over the weekend, of course, Rangers issued a statement on Friday, I believe, with regards to the fixture against Napoli this week. They said they were in discussions with Police Scotland and UEFA with regards to resources and policing as well about the match. And it was announced yesterday the game was being moved to Wednesday, and there will be no Napoli supporters present. The downside to that is there will be no Rangers fans present at the return match on October the 4th in the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium. Massive blow for all those Rangers supporters who've already booked travel, not only just for the Ibrox game, of course, but the match over to Italy. Lots of fans booked their flights well in advance, as well as hotels and what have you, Joshua. It's just an unfortunate series of events, of course. It's all stemming from the fact, of course, that a lot of policing in regards to the Queen Elizabeth and, of course, our coffin in Edinburgh at the moment. So they're pretty stretched as it is, and unfortunately, the Rangers supporters won't be able to go to Italy to watch their team in action.
Yeah, well, Johnny put on the site is kind of a perfect storm. I think that's very true. But aside from the fact that it's, with policing concerns or whatever, it wouldn't have been an easy situation to sort out. As you say, people, even if they can get their tickets refunded, might have paid for kind of non-refundable hotels, as I did for Amsterdam when you'd already booked me on, Derek. Luckily, you had the refundable option, or your flights, whatever. So, really unfortunate and frustrating, and also I'm sure a lot of people would have been enjoying or looking forward to the game just in general. So, definitely an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, it certainly is. That match, of course, taking place on Wednesday, folks, against Napoli at Ibrox, and we'll have a big build-up to that match. I'll be speaking to Marco Negri later on, and also a Napoli podcaster to give us a bit of an insight into what Rangers can expect to face on Wednesday. But it goes without saying, Joshua, they're a side that are in right good form at the moment. Thrashed Liverpool in their opening game by 4-1. Spalletti, top coach. This is going to be a tough test for Rangers.
Oh, I think it could be very tough. I mean, I watched some of their match back with Liverpool. Liverpool are obviously played like a little bit of a side in crisis, I think, in midweek, and Klopp spoke about it after being a point for Liverpool to need to reinvent themselves. So I think that tells you just how far away they were from the image that he has of his team. Andy Robertson spoke about how they were so uncompact. And the thing is, when you play a high line like Liverpool did in Napoli, but you don't have any pressure on the ball, you're effectively just allowing teams to slide the ball in behind the defence into lots of space. I mean, you've got a player like Osimhen able to run in behind that. So a bit of a dangerous game to be playing. So, yeah, but even aside from that, obviously Napoli, I think they're still top, is that right, of Serie A? They were at one point in the weekend. Going to watch a couple of their games over the next couple of days as well. It'll be really difficult for Rangers. But the base expectation, Derek, I don't think will be necessarily a win because of the level of opposition Rangers are playing. Although I think based on recent Ibrox performances over the last year or results, a lot of people will travel with high expectations, and rightly so. But the base expectation will be a performance of effort and intangibles that is much better than it was in Ajax last week. So Rangers have I think it'll be a week since they played their last game by the time they take to the field on Wednesday, and they need to use this as an opportunity to try and bounce back, build some momentum. But we said that away at Ajax on Wednesday, because if you lose the game in an unconvincing fashion, again, not just result but performance, that's 3 in a row, and that's I think a precarious position to be in.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a ask for Rangers to win against a side such as Napoli. I've seen even the odds this morning, one bookmaker 4-1 for Rangers to win, which seems rather tempting, but it just shows you not much confidence in Rangers turning over the Italian side. But I'm sure that the fans will play their part. But in terms of the Ajax game, we were there, Joshua. What do Rangers need to do better to get a result on Wednesday that they didn't do last Wednesday against Ajax?
Well, you know what's interesting, Derek, and I don't think this has really been covered, and part of that is because obviously I had the journey from, we'll call it a long journey back on Thursday.
No, yours was long.
Yeah, mine's was long. And you were back in the country by what, 9:30?
9:30 in the morning, yeah, straight flight to Liverpool, but you had a rather more lengthy journey home.
Well, I went to Schiphol Airport to go to Eindhoven Airport, and then got caught in London for about I think it was 10, no, it was meant to be 8 hours. It ended up being about 13. Wow. So it was a long day in Stansted. And the thing is with Stansted, Derek, it's not that big an airport. I didn't realise. So there's nothing to do. No seats. So that's why maybe we didn't get this piece out in time. But Van Bronckhorst actually said after the game, and we included it in one of our analysis pieces, that Rangers, you're used to seeing the Rangers centre back stepping out and being aggressive on the opposition strikers. And again, this maybe wasn't as big a topic of conversation because the performance was so lacking that people didn't really care about this, which is fair enough. And it's a valid conversation. You can have all the tactics in the world, but if you don't have the right application, it doesn't matter. But what Van Bronckhorst was saying was he wanted his players to stay in zones at the back, I think, and not necessarily be pulled out of position by the opposition movement. They obviously had, I think it was Kudos, number 20. He was really influential, got on the ball a lot of times, assisted one, scored the other in the first half. But Rangers were pulled out of position by his movement, which Van Bronckhorst didn't want them to do. And what I found interesting about that was I can't think of a game where that's really happened, where in Europe, maybe away from home a couple of times, but the tactical decisions always seem to carry through to the team so successfully. So I don't know if that was a bit of a factor. I think Ajax sort of got one over on Rangers in that regard. Obviously, the other thing is they're just a top team and have a lot of quality, and you can see that right throughout it. When you're bringing in someone like Calvin Bassey in the summer, I thought he didn't put a foot wrong the whole night. He made 114 passes, or 144, which is almost half of what the entire Rangers team did. But then, as you say, I think outside of that, there was just a lacking of the application that people wanted to see and people really needed to see after the weekend. And I think coupled that with, as I say, that tactical plan, which maybe didn't give them as successful a base layer as it has in previous European games, it was just a bit of a perfect storm. And I think only going to that shape at the break for Rangers left no space and allowed them to kind of see out the game. But then to lose a fourth goal, as we said on the night, to lose a fourth goal of that manner, I think hugely frustrating as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Lots of comments coming in here just now. I wanted to talk about, there's a piece on the website, folks, that Johnny McFarlane did yesterday, just about Rangers in general at the moment and how they can get back, how they can get out of this slump, basically. Lots of interesting points that he raises. We'll touch on a number of them, Joshua. Is the first point that he notes is work on set pieces. I think Rangers, for me, need to go back to basics. I've already said, I think I've lost count the amount of times I've said zonal marking needs ditched. Rangers just are losing too many goals from set pieces just now. There's no accountability. It's the same goal they seem to be losing as well. So I think that's certainly one area of the game that Rangers are struggling in at the moment. How do Rangers improve on set pieces? Because at the moment they're not doing the basics right there.
I think in the first instance, you've just got to do something different, because you've seen, again, we analysed this on the website, we've seen this against Ajax. They actually tried 2 short corners before the goal, and in the end, we did an analysis on this. There's nothing in that goal. There's nothing in it. There's no blocks from Ajax, no kind of clever runs to get the marker free. It's just a cross onto the head. They maybe overload the front post and get one at the back. For me, it needs to be a mixture, because man-for-man mark, any system is vulnerable, right? Because man-for-man marking, you can just block someone so easily, and it's the same as man-for-man marking in open play. It has its risks. I think most coaches seem to opt for a kind of mix approach, where you get a couple of free headers of the ball, but you're not allowing players to have a free run at you. And that was the same issue against PSV at home, where you have Obispo, who wins the header against Goldson, but Goldson's side on, Obispo has 5-6 yards unopposed to make a free run-in header. And if you've got the strongest headers of the ball at the edge of the box, able to make a run-in unopposed and head the ball, it's normally going to be successful. The thinking obviously behind zonal marking is Rangers don't want players to be dragged out of zones by movement, etc., and keep their strongest headers of the ball in those areas. But that doesn't really matter if the opposition's strongest headers of the ball are getting the run on them, and the opposition have the foresight of what Rangers are going to do. So I think first and foremost, you've got to switch it up, do something a bit different. And I think you've got to do a little bit of a hybrid zone. Yes, some man-for-man marking in there at the edge of the box, maybe go 3-on-3 with the opposition runners, and don't go as pure zonal, because I think that's actually quite rare. I can't think of many teams off the top of my head who do it that pronounced. But equally, I don't think it's the right thing to kind of go the complete other opposite direction. But it's a vulnerability at the moment for Rangers, and when Rangers are already vulnerable in open play in the last couple of games, you don't need set pieces to be something that bring you down even further.
Yeah, and I like this post from Gallant Pioneer. All for this. Men on the post would be lovely as well. Yeah, I mean, just get Stephen Davis has been a master at that through the years, clearing goals off the line. So yeah, if Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is watching, then please can we stick some men on the post also for set pieces. Another point he raises, Joshua. He talks about Ryan Kent. He discusses Bona Barisic and Ryan Kent. Barisic, I think, is been playing pretty well recently for Rangers. One of the few players you'd have to say, but Kent, someone, and I touched on this with a piece on Friday. I think it's time for a spell on the sidelines. We both had him out of the team in our predicted lineups for the Ajax game. He was played, but again, another disappointing performance from him. I don't know what it is with Ryan Kent just now, whether it's it's mental issue or fatigue and physical wise, but it looks like he just needs to recharge the batteries. And Rangers have got a number of options that can play out in that left-hand side. Rabbi Matondo played a lot for Cercle Bruges last year out there. Ridvan Yilmaz, I suggested, could play in a more advanced role, and that would be able to accommodate Bona Barisic, and Fashion Sakala we know can play out there as well. Would you be opposed to seeing Ryan Kent drop out the side for the next game? Well, the next game being Napoli.
I would be surprised if it happens, but I don't think it would be undeserved. I mean, I was watching in my sick bed this weekend, Derek, some games or highlights from Gerrard's second season, just for some idea I had that didn't really come to fruition. I increasingly feel like there is an argument that maybe you look at the argument of refresh and maybe a squad not being wholly refreshed, and you look at the players that in the teams that season, and I mentioned, I think it was someone called Danny who tweeted me after the game with the lineup from the Feyenoord game in 2019 with Kamara and Jack and Davies and Kent and Morelos, Tavernier, Goldson, Barisic, McGregor. And I don't know, and I was watching Kent in some of those games as well, and you just remember how good a player he can be, and how good a player he is, and why he's built this reputation at Ibrox. But I don't think he's there at the moment. And the reason I bring up that refresh thing is, at a club where there's so much demand constantly, I think that there is an argument that you need every couple of years, every few years, a real 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 players come in to refresh the starting 11, just to I guess reset for the challenge. And obviously at the moment, Rangers of the 7 players they signed this summer, a few of them are still not in the team. Ben Davies, I think he has to come in there, but for me, James Sands has probably been better than Connor Goldson at the start of the season.
Yeah.
I don't really know what Sands has done wrong. I think it's difficult, particularly for him when he's playing in a team that's not got much confidence and a defence that was left really vulnerable to attacks in the previous 2 games. I know he kind of deflected that one goal for the second Ajax goal, but I don't think he's putting up performance that shows him up for not being a central defender. I don't buy into that, particularly when he's played in central defence for his country a lot. That's not to say that I don't think Ben Davies will be Connor Goldson's long-term defensive partner, but I actually think of the right and the left, defensive-wise, I think Barisic and Sands have probably been a little bit less culpable than Goldson and Tavernier over the last few games, particularly when you look at the Parkhead game, the Old Firm game with the restarts. And Barisic, as you say, I think since Yilmaz came into the club after that game in Belgium, Barisic has been pretty good. Yeah, pretty consistent. So, but I think you need to refresh the starting 11, and we said that before the Ajax game. Only one player came out, whether it be Matondo. Obviously, you've not got Lawrence at the moment; he's injured. Getting Morelos back fit. I know he didn't play at all against Ajax. I think you've got to just the value at points of doing something different. I don't think you can underestimate that. And I'd like to see a few changes on Wednesday, but as we say, with injuries and other things. How feasible is that across the pitch?
Yeah. Actually, when you touched on Ben Davies, Joshua, that was another point that Johnny raised. He says integrate Ben Davies at ASAP. Listen, Rangers spent a lot of money on him, and he's going to have to play at some point. I wouldn't be surprised to see him. Does he start on Wednesday? I'm not so sure, but Rangers have to play him. And
this is a difficulty you have. This is a difficulty you have, Derek, where you've got players like him and Yilmaz, and when do you get them up to speed? That's the thing, because you have now 3 games before. Was it 2 games before then? Now in the international breaks, 2 games. Dundee United at home and Napoli, because obviously Aberdeen was postponed. So if you, maybe then you get them up to speed in the international break, but then you're looking at these players and they're not coming into the squad until October, and I guess Van Bronckhorst could turn around and say that Sands and Barisic were playing well. And as I say, I don't think they're necessarily the problem position. I think Rangers, especially against Ajax, had no way to get up the pitch whatsoever. And that's not really Cholak's game, but they didn't have a fit Morelos. I don't think Kent, as we've discussed, is enjoying his best game. The right wing position continues to be an issue. They brought Matondo on there after the break, but he's not really bedded in yet. So you need between now and the international break, even if Napoli is going to be a difficult ask. It's the team that have just put 4 against past Liverpool, had a penalty saved. I think their expected goals was almost 6. So it's a ridiculous game. But you need performance levels. You need some sort of performances that make people buy in after 2 really bad performances. And Dundee United, of course, think non-negotiable. You have to go and win that, don't you?
Yeah, lots of comments coming in here. I wanted to touch on a few of them. Andy Miller makes a good point, Joshua. He says, if Tav is injured, who do you think will go at right back? Sands or King or even Jack?
It should be Divine.
What's that, sorry?
Should be Divine, shouldn't it? I mean, that's
I was going to say, of course, Leon King came in in the match. I thought he did pretty well at right back when he came on at half-time in Amsterdam. But listen, I think he has been carrying an injury. He has been off the boil in the last few weeks. He'll be itching to play on Wednesday night. There's no doubt about it. But I'd be inclined to play. I think play a King or a Adam Devine there. I know it's a bit of a baptism of fire, Joshua. But if he's not fit enough, then I don't think Rangers should be risking him.
Yeah, and it's not like Tavernier to not play, is it? So you have to imagine that it's something maybe not too bad because he started the game. But I did think for that 3rd goal, you looked at him and when he wasn't managing to track back, and you thought he doesn't quite look there, does he?
No.
I think Devine. I mean, King did well for me, but it was. I think the reason you bring him on is because Rangers are playing to hold the scoreline and not really try and get back into the game. But Devine's a backup right back, or that's what I guess the argument would be with Sikowski going out there and Devine stepping up from the B team. So if he's in the squad, you have to imagine he's good enough. I think we've seen particularly Hearts last day of the season. He's got that physicality that should help him in the step up to playing men's football. But yeah, I think you've got as much as it would be a big task playing against Napoli. Maybe there's an argument there to play play a more experienced player, but then are you again playing a player out of position to accommodate an area in the squad where you don't have sufficient depth? I don't think that would happen. I kind of feel that Devine would play, to be honest, and I think that is what should happen if your first choice right back's out. You've got to play your second choice.
Yeah, there was a comment that came in as well saying Rangers should start with a back five on Wednesday. Certainly, Giovanni van Bronckhorst, it was damage limitation at halftime with the changes that he made, and Rangers went almost 5-4-1. Would you like to see that to kick off the match on Wednesday, Joshua? A bit more conservative?
Maybe have to. I don't know. I guess it depends what Rangers think they can get from the game, and as we've said, Napoli look pretty good, and Rangers, I'm sure, if they're at their best and they've got a fit squad and they're confident that they could go and give them a game at Ibrox, because there's not been a team that's come to Ibrox that they've not been able to do that against so far. Yeah. But the difference with Ajax was, in the last 4 or 5 years of watching Rangers in Europe, I can't really remember a collapse in the first half like that, where just goal after goal went in and could have been more. And do you know what I mean? There's always been that solidity to fall back upon. Always been, I guess, an assurance that, okay, even if Rangers don't play brilliantly tonight, they're not going to get battered. And I think in that first half, when it went 3-0, you were starting to think, this could get messy because Ajax have just so much quality. Maybe it's an argument, as the comment says there, if Tav is out, to give Devine a little bit more protection. Yeah, maybe Rangers just play a more conservative player at right back, like a Leon King, and opt for a bit more pace ahead of him. The thing is, though, with Tavernier is so important because Rangers in possession have been going to this kind of back three more, with Tavernier holding the width on the right and Kent the width on the left. And I guess that's maybe a bit in response to the fact that Rangers don't have that right winger, or maybe a bit of a cause because Tavernier is going wide in possession and they don't need someone to do that. I don't really buy into that, but just thinking behind the reasoning. So then you've kind of got to change your shape in possession as well. So it could be a difficult one if Tav's out.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in. Positive Vibe says, define for him, be as well giving youngsters valuable experience. It reminds me a bit if they do play him. I remember back in the day in the 90s, Rangers put in, I'm sure it was Greg Shields and Scott Wilson for their debut against the Ajax in the Champions League at Ibrox. A real baptism of fire, and they did reasonably well, to be fair. I think Rangers lost by a goal to 0, but it was a top Ajax team. The other point he raises in his piece is about Alfredo Morelos, Joshua. I think everyone was surprised not to see him feature at any point last Wednesday against Ajax. He's, as far as we know, he's been busting a gut in training and trying to get himself in shape to play a part. He wants to play on the biggest stage, which is the Champions League. Can you see him starting the game or even featuring on Wednesday?
I don't know, because again,
if you're the manager, would you play him from the start?
You'd be tempted to, wouldn't you? You'd be tempted. I mean, I guess all depends. We don't know what how fit he is. Yeah. And the fact that he didn't play against Ajax maybe suggests he wouldn't. But I guess as I say, when you're on the back of 2 4-0 defeats, why not? I think Morelos needs to come back into it at some stage. But again, if he's not played away in Ajax, maybe it's more realistic again that Rangers want to wait until after the international break to get him up to full fitness. But I think if you don't change around the squad after 2 4-0 defeats, the starting 11, when do you change it around? Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what the team lineup is going to be. Certainly, the general consensus is it needs freshened up, needs some alterations to that Rangers side. But Napoli, top side coming to Ibrox on Wednesday night. And just to recap, folks, if you're just tuning in, if you never saw the news yesterday, the game has been moved from Tuesday night to Wednesday night due to policing constraints. There will be no Napoli fans in the stadium, and unfortunately that means no Rangers fans are going to be permitted in the return match in Italy on the 4th of October. Real disappointing bit of news there for supporters who are heading out or plan to head out to Italy for that game. Okay, I think that'll do us there. Plenty of on the website coming up today, folks. As I mentioned, lots of Napoli build-up. I was speaking to a Napoli podcast, and also Marco Negri, who obviously watches Napoli at close hand over there. And we're also looking ahead to the B team game, which will be kicking off on Wednesday afternoon as well. They had a great performance, I have to say. I was at the game in Amsterdam on Wednesday. They battered Ajax, especially second half. They hit the post countless times, missed a penalty, and were very unfortunate to lose by 2-1. But they gave a very good account of themselves. So that match taking place on Wednesday as well. Whereabouts is the game taking place? Do you know, Joshua?
Yeah, I think it's for Hill. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it. The football, so going to that one, and then the game at night. But yeah, I only watched it on the TV because I was otherwise engaged on last week. But they did look good. Pardon me, against Ajax. So hopefully another good performance from the under-19s.
Yeah, here's hoping. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. We'll be back again tomorrow. But until then, enjoy the rest